Alrighty, guys. Hello. Today, I am making this video in defense of women.
I promise I'll be nice. I swear I'll treat you right. Well, come on, sit next to me.
Have you noticed there are a bazillion guys on YouTube? A lot of Christian guys, a lot of my YouTube friends. But how many women YouTubers are out there, Christian, that can push back on what some of you guys are saying? So that's me. That's me today. I'm going to be talking about what happened with Matt Chandler and why I feel like some of you Christian guys are maybe communicating something that you might not be trying to communicate, but it comes off that way, at least to me as a woman. And it has consequences. And I think that we can all do better when we have these conversations about male women interactions and how we can try to prevent things from going wrong, like what happened with Matt Chandler. Okay, for those of you that may not be up to speed on Matt Chandler and the thing that happened with him, he is a very well-known Christian pastor, and he got into some trouble recently. I won't go into details, but he got into some trouble because there was an investigation that happened at his church. A lady complained about private messages that this pastor was having with this other lady. And even though the pastor's wife and the woman's husband were aware of these private messages happening, ongoing very frequently, and I guess it was getting to a level of very, they said, familiarity, they decided to ask him to step down from preaching, at least I think for the time being, and they're going to, take some steps to correct this and help him out, I guess. But some people I've heard have responded to what happened with him with, like, the typical rules you hear online by so many, and by women as well, to be honest, that there are or should be certain boundaries between men and women when it comes to messaging and talking, even at church. And so that's what I want to talk to you guys about today. I want to invite you to step into my world for a little bit and kind of see what it's like to be a Christian woman in a Christian world, led mostly by Christian men. And he would back me up with this. Anyway, that's my son's Stuffy. We call him Baby Yoda. So here we go. This pastor and this woman were having private messages, and their spouses knew about it. So that wasn't necessarily the problem, perhaps, the private messaging. I mean, I'm going to share with you like some things about, this isn't a really black and white thing, and it's not something that we can become legalistic about, I think. But it's just, we're going to find the answer somewhere in the middle, and it's like really messy in the middle. So it's okay to believe a lot of things all at the same time, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, there were private messages, and I think, I hope I'm not going to make it too much about this person, because I don't like to talk about other people because that's so impersonal, you know what I mean? And I don't want it to seem like just weird. But this is all I'll say about that, and then I'll stop talking about them completely. So I think the good thing was that both of their spouses knew about it. I mean, it's completely different if your spouse does not know about it, and that reveals like some other issues going on in your own heart, right? So that's all I'll say about that. Okay. I've actually been really, really legalistic about this topic in the past, just because I wanted to be super careful in my own life, in my own personal life about, like, because I've been the girl version of you Christian guys. I've been the girl version where I'm like, if you're a guy, I don't even want to talk to you. Like I'll say hi, but that's about it. Like, don't talk to me. Or like if you're sending me a message, it's like, why are you sending me a message? And then I've also like gotten married, and all of a sudden it's like there's so many things that can happen in a marriage, where like you have to figure it out, right? So here's the thing. It would be easy if we could come up with rules and just be really strict about them, and boom, we're safe. We're never going to like ever like tempt ourselves to fall into that situation if we just are really strict about our rules, right? But we live in this world where, God created both men and women. And, he made us the way that he made us, with the good that is to be attracted to the opposite sex, because that's God's good design. He wants us to, have this attraction, so to speak, relationship with our spouse. He blessed Adam and Eve, right? So be fruitful and multiply. So that was God's plan. He made a man, he made a woman. Go have babies. How's that gonna happen? Like we're not like just, animals in heat. He made us with like these relationships, right? It's sexuality is within marriage, and there's a deep relationship that protects that sexual attraction that we have for the person in our life that's the opposite sex. So the problem happens when we don't learn, we're not taught how to interact with the opposite sex, while at the same time having this good thing inside of us that does happen to be attracted to the opposite sex. So it's like, what do we do about that? So that's when we become really weird, and we try to come up with our rules and things like that. So I have so many things to say about this topic, so it's kind of hard to choose where to begin. So here, I'm just going to share with you some of the things that I've learned. I am, and I'm proud to say it, I believe I'm 35 years old. Okay, when I reached my 30s, I stopped counting. I stopped thinking it's so important to know how old you are. So I was born on the year 1987. So do the math with me right now. 87, so that's calculator. Confirm my age, calculator. 1980, we're in the year 2022, minus 1987. Yes, I am, in fact, 35 years old. Okay, so around the 30s, mid 30s, which I'm barely like entering, I feel like there's this special wisdom that begins to happen, because like when you're young, you are so like insecure, you don't know who you are, you're learning all these things about yourself, you're learning so many things about the world, you make a lot of mistakes. But when you're in your mid 30s, oh, okay, you've learned from a lot of that. Still a lot of learning to do, but there's some wisdom. And so something that I've learned is you are going to be attracted to the opposite sex, people that are not your spouse. It's just a fact. And we need to accept that as Christians. And so that is the first step, I think. When we notice someone and we think, wow, this person is really nice looking. Oh, this person, whatever, like this person's body is like catching my attention, like surprisingly, right? Because I'm not intentionally like checking this person out. But things like that pop into your mind. What do you do when things like that pop into your mind? As a Christian, obviously, as a spouse, you'll probably feel like guilt. You'll probably feel like defensive, like, oh no, like I need to get away from this person because I'm uncomfortable with my feelings. I think that the proper response is to just think, so what? I acknowledge that this person is like really nice looking, and okay, let's move on. Let's continue what we need to do. Because like let's say it's like a work situation, a professional situation. Okay, so you don't just linger in that thought, right? You just, yes, I found this person attractive. So what? Moving on. Like, let's just deal with what we're doing here. Okay, so when you can't shake off those feelings of attraction, that's when you should definitely bring it to God. And if these feelings are lingering for like weeks, months, take it to God and ask Him to help you with that. And God has a way of like solving your problems. I've seen it in my own life, like situations that were like icky, like situations where it's like uncomfortable, like you're not really sure what to do about certain situations. I've seen God do things all on His own after like praying to Him about it. So trust God, He'll help you with that. And I don't know if like we hear that enough from our leaders, because I think our leaders are struggling with these things themselves. Okay, so I've also heard this from Christian people that have platforms. So they say, I told my wife that I found this person attractive. And I hear that, and I hear their wives like responding and being so understanding. And I'm like, oh, no, no, no. And I respect you women. I mean, you women, some of you women are so like, you ooze confidence. I don't know if it's just a front, because, you're kind of put in a situation where your spouse is saying this personal stuff in front of everyone. And so you can't sound insecure, right? But maybe you are. You just ooze that confidence. And I applaud you. I applaud you. But here's the thing. Like for me personally as a wife, I don't want to know. In fact, I can probably tell already by body language because I know you for so many years. And not just my spouse, but I can observe it from other men as well. There have been situations where at church where there's this pretty lady that we introduced to the musicians, and goodness gracious, like the men or the friends at a different scenario, goodness gracious, you could just see it in their eyes. You could see it in like how polite they are, how different they act, how much attention they're giving the lady. We can just tell. I mean, we can just tell when like we're walking by and a guy's gaze is lingering a little longer than probably should. We ignore it, but for the most part, like we can see, like we have peripheral vision, right? So all that to say, like me personally, I don't want to know who you find attractive. I don't think I want to tell like my spouse either, because for me personally, it's a little disrespectful. Like, I expect you and myself to just deal with these things on our own. Like you deal with your things, take it up to God, or you just need to know, like, be professional, please, and and focus your attention on me, your spouse, because this is what God has given you, not that. So anyway, that's one way that some Christian men deal with it. Like they tell their spouses, not sure that's the best thing. I mean, a lot of feelings will get hurt. And I don't know about other women, but for me, forever, like that person might have never been on my radar ever. And then now, because you told me that you found this person attractive, like now, forever, that person will be the person my spouse finds attractive. So I don't think it's the best idea. From a woman's perspective, feel free to leave in the comments if you disagree with me. You're a woman. Hey, there's more than one woman's perspective out there. So let's see. Another thing that I feel, okay, men do wrong is that men will say, I as a man in leadership will never be alone with a woman. I will never be having a conversation alone with a woman. And so here's I want to conclude the video because we could talk about this for like days. So here we go. This is what I really want to say. Instead of like saying a rule like that or living by a rule like that, because it communicates a lot of things to us as women, like so many things. Like, you find me attractive that easily. You find me, you think I'm a temptress, and then that even internalizes, like for example in me, that shapes my identity. If you have a rule like that, all of a sudden you're communicating to me as a woman, I can be a temptress in any conversation that I'm alone with a man. No, that's not true. So it's not helpful for women for us to do things like that. And it's not helpful for us as women, wives, to be so jealous either. Unreasonably jealous. There's a right jealousy, when something is wrong, then that's when we should be jealous. But if we're just being insecure and jealous for no reason, or because we're insecure because, oh, that I feel that other lady is like younger, prettier than me, whatever those things are, like, we have to be reasonable, right? So it's I don't think it's biblical for us to say that the shepherd, right? Like Jesus obviously is a shepherd, but like the person that God is using to lead a church, or the staff, they cannot properly disciple half of the church because they're women. That's so wrong. Especially because we live in a world where the majority of the information of our Christian worldview is within the male gender. So if we are ignoring women just because they're women, and because I want to protect myself as a man, you are not doing your due diligence in discipling women. Discipleship doesn't just happen when you show up to church. It actually happens like in their real life. In our real life, there should, we have a whole system of how we do church, how we do discipleship in America. But, discipleship is like our whole life. It's guidance when we need it. And sometimes women are not getting enough information because we're expected to just, get it from the other women, which, by the way, probably didn't have the opportunity to go to seminary the way you did. So here's the solution. Here is my solution that I propose to you, especially you two Christian men. Instead of saying, I would never be alone with a woman or have a private conversation with a woman, instead say this: I, as a man, am not capable of setting boundaries in my professional position at church, so I cannot be left alone with a woman in a room, and I cannot be left alone in a private chat. I'm dealing with this, this lack of self-control and lack of accountability in my life, and I cannot be in a position to help women that need discipleship properly. Boom, right? Because that's what it really is. Because if a woman is in leadership and she has private messages with someone else, the solution isn't just ban her from ever having a private conversation with another person. No, there's actually something going on in her life that she needs to take before God, and she needs to learn, from what's going on, get some proper guidance, counseling, just maybe step away, right? From having these conversations with this particular person, learn from it so you don't continue making the same mistakes, right? So there's this whole process of, whoops, this is actually sin in my life. It's unhealthy. And yeah, I cannot be trusted in a position of leadership if I am incapable or unwilling to obey my Lord in this area of my life. Simple as that. And maybe that's why we need more women in leadership positions, so that women have the option of going to other women for discipleship. Women that have gone to seminary, that are, just will understand women anyway better in certain situations and be able to communicate even better to them. Give some of their wisdom, some of their learned experience as well. Still, I don't think the solution is just getting more women in the staff. I think definitely the solution is, hey, we need to learn how to deal with our own sin so that we don't have to have ridiculous rules. Okay. If someone needs to ask their pastor, if it's a woman and a pastor is there at church ready to talk to anyone, that should include women. Women shouldn't feel like, oh, the church is going to think that I have a crush on my pastor. If I send an email, if I go and ask him a question, maybe even every Sunday, how twisted is that we set that type of environment in church? It's so twisted, you guys. Church should be a safe place for women to be discipled. And so yeah, there shouldn't be this mentality where women are just flirtatious. They're not interested in really learning about from their pastors and whatnot. A pastor should be able to have a conversation with a woman, whether publicly or privately, while at the same time understanding that, like this pastor that we talked about in the beginning, you're under, you're accountable to, for example, the elders in your church. And there's this saying in Spanish that goes something like, don't do things that look like you're doing something bad. So obviously there's wisdom, and there's wisdom in also learning who's coming to you for help, and getting them a plan where they don't necessarily depend on you each time. So getting them someone that they can actually go talk to and continue this type of conversation, this type of accountability, making sure they have the resources or whatever that they need. Giving them even resources. Hey, I think this would be a really good book for you to read. Things like that. Equipping women so that they don't keep coming back. There's this other thing. I mean, that's the heart of the matter, right? Because if we set rules, that's the real problem with this. But here you go. The less serious side of this. It can be really awkward as a wife for you to be, for example, in the car with your spouse, having a delightful conversation with your kids in the back, and all of a sudden your spouse gets a private message from the girl that you guys are friends with. And it's really weird. And so that's the thing. Like, I personally feel like I feel responsible as a woman to conduct myself and carry myself out professionally, and make sure that I'm in control over where I'm comfortable with the conversation going. Something I've learned that is very important, that maybe people don't teach men and women enough, is that you never talk about your feelings, like your deepest feelings, with the opposite sex, because what happens is you bond emotionally, and that's huge. That bond is meant to be only in marriage. Like, there's this whole basket, this marriage basket, and so sex falls into that basket. Emotional intimacy falls into that basket. So when you begin to have like this frequency of like messages, and even if it's just like funny and stuff, like that's where it's gray, right? So it's like, I think you should just always be mindful of how you would feel as a spouse, and at the same time not set so strict rules. But I don't know, I think some people do like the attention that they get from the opposite sex, and so that's where I think that's not right. So anyway, as you can see, I have a very busy house here with my kids. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Yeah, I hope that you can take my advice as a sister. You can value my advice as a sister in Christ, and that you'll think about it. All right. See you guys on the next video.
I tell you every day, you're so sweet when you're talking, as pretty as a bouquet. I promise I'll be nice, I swear I'll treat you right.